Shai, Bahasham, Rakah, Kodash, and double honors to the apostles of Great Millstone, and in spirit and sincerity. And salutations to my fellow Hebrew Israelite brothers out there that are plowing the fields in the name of Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai. Shalom, shalom, shalom. And salutations to the brothers and sisters that have been edified by the truth of the scriptures of who we are, the true children of Israel, and who the other nations are. Now, normally today I would be out on the highways and hedges today, but we've had some torrential rain and weather and storm out there today. So today's edification is going to be done from inside, from indoors. So this is why I'm not out on the highways and hedges today, because of the torrential rain that's been falling most of the day, basically. So just in case you were wondering, this guy's normally out there on a Sunday on the highways and hedges. Well, you're absolutely right. But that's the reason why I'm indoors today, because of the weather. The weather is kind of brass out there. It's heavily raining and the winds and the storm and so forth. Yeah. So, but it doesn't stop us from doing the work either way. You know, the idea is to always continue to keep pushing out this word, this truth, in the name of our Savior Yahweh Shai and the Father Yahweh. So today's edification, as you can see, it's called Japheth is not the white man. Japheth is not the white man and not in Bible end time prophecies. Right? I can't say this enough. Japheth is not the white man and is not in Bible end time prophecies. And I'm going to show you this in Bible scripture. And I'm going to bring out some secular history for you to understand, but I'm also going to show you this in Bible prophecy. That when the Lord is talking about the end times, when the Lord is talking about the enemies of Israel, he's not talking about Japheth. The enemies of Israel mainly come from Shem and Ham. Right? They're not. The Lord is not speaking on Japheth as being the enemies of Israel, basically. Right? Those that the Lord is going to come down truly hard on. Those come from the line of Shem and from the line of Ham, the main enemies of Israel. Just so you understand. So, what we're going to start off with, I'm going to show you, because we have a lot of people keep saying that Japheth is the Europeans, all right? That Japheth is a so-called white man because Japheth had the land of Europe, which is true. Japheth's promise was the land of Europe, but Japheth is not the white man. The people that's in the land of Europe are not Japhites or Japhites, right? They're not from Japheth. The people that are in the land of Europe are mainly from the line of Shem, which are the Edomites, because Edom comes from the line of Shem. Just so you understand. So let me just put this up here so you can see. So, as you can see here, this was a land that was promised to Japheth, and which he inhabited. So after the flood and Noah's three sons, Japheth, Ham, and Shem, after the flood, they were given these three separate lands. Ham was given what we know today as Africa. Shem was given what we know today as what we refer to as the Middle East. Japheth was given to what we know today as Europe. Western Europe, Eastern Europe was given to Japheth, what we call today Europe. This is where the sons of Noah went and basically became the progenitors of the different nations that came from them. So the reason why people keep on saying Japheth is the so-called European is because Japheth was given the land of Europe, what we know today as Europe. So I was speaking about this yesterday. When you watch that film, Hebrews to Negroes, that guy, Ronald Dalton, believes that the so-called white man are Japheth. And this is why he believes it, because Japheth was given this land. But Japheth is not the so-called white man. Japheth is not the Europeans. They had the land of Europe, but they were pushed out of this land of Europe by the Edomites, by Esau's descendants, pushed them out. Japheth are what we know today as the Polynesian people, right? That live out in Hawaii, the Aborigines in Australia, the Moans and the Samoans out there in New Zealand, and all of the islands that circle that. They call it the Polynesian Islands. That's where Japheth is today. Those people that put tattoos all over their body, right? Rock's mother is a Japhite, I believe. His father is a Judite, and his mother is a Japhite, right? Rock, Dwayne, is it Dwayne? I forget his surname. Dwayne Williams, something like that. But that's where Japheth are today. Japheth were pushed out of Europe by the Edomites, by Esau's seed. They conquered it and they pushed them out. So they reside now in what we know today as Hawaii, Australia, New Zealand. They're the Aborigines. They're the Polynesians, the Samoans, the Minoans. They are those people of those islands. They refer to them as the Polynesians. That's who Japheth is. Japheth are a people of color. Dark, 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 dark. Like the Aborigines. The Aborigines are really dark skinned to fair skin. Like the Samoans and the Minoans. The rest of the Polynesian people. Japheths are different shades of brown, from a dark, dark, dark to a light, 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 light brown. They're people of color. Esau, Edom are not Esau, Edom are not what we would call people of color. They are Caucasians, all right? They are people of color because they are different shades of red, but because they call themselves white, they get referred to as people that are of no color. But they are. The Edomites are different shades of red, from a light, light pink to a pale, pale pink. That's what they are. Different shades of red, the Edomites. Shem. So we come from the line of Shem. The Israelites come from the line of Shem. So does Esau, Edom. The Edomites come from the line of Shem. Ham are where all the Canaanite tribes come from. So like the Jebusites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, the Hittites. They referred to as the Canaanites. They were the original inhabitants of what we know today as Israel. Was originally inhabited by Ham's sons, Cain, right? And the sons of Canaan. The Canaanites were the original inhabitants of what we know today as Israel. Those are the people that the Israelites conquered to take over that land. So the Israelites are not called Canaanites because we conquered the land of Cain. We are called Israelites because the land was renamed Israel. The word Israel means Prince of Power. So even though Ham's son, Canaan, is the original inhabitant, as you see, it says there, Canaan of Israel, that land was renamed Israel after we conquered Canaan. So the Israelites conquered the land of Canaan, and it was named after them, or after their forefather, Jacob, basically. So, like I said, Japheth is not an end-time prophecy. So there's three things I wanted to show you here, all right? Just to give you a little bit more understanding of what we're talking about. So, you do a search. I thought, let me just do like they say, Occam's razor. Occam's razor. There's a term they call Occam's razor. When you look at all the other possibilities, right, and you realize that none of them fit, you look at the simplest answer. You look at all of the other possibilities called Occam's razor. There's a term that they call Occam's razor. And they say you look at all the possibilities to a solution to a problem, and when none of them, or to an answer to something, and when none of them fit, just look at the simplest thing, and that will be the answer. So this is what we're going to do today. We're going to look at all the possibilities of how we know Japheth can't be the white man, and it's not the white man. Then we're going to look at the simplest thing. So this is what I did today, all right? In preparation for today's edification. I did a search for the word Japheth in the Bible, in the King James Bible, in the Old Testament, the New Testament, and the Apocrypha, right? To see how many times does the name Japheth show up in the Bible, just to show you that when we tell you that Japheth is not the so-called white man, and Japheth is not prophesied, there's no prophecies about Japheth, in the Bible, in the end time prophecies of the Bible. The name Japheth appears 11 times. 11 times in the whole of the King James Bible, right? The New Testament, the Old Testament, and the Apocrypha. Just 11 times, all right? Chronicles, Genesis. Let's just sort it by order so we can see. The first time it appears, when it tells you that he's one of Noah's sons. Noah begat Shem, Ham, and Japheth, all right? That's the first time it appears. Then it talks about Noah's 3 sons again, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Then Genesis 7 talks about how they entered into the ark. Then Genesis chapter 9 speaks about them being on the ark again. Chapter 9 again, talking about them on the ark, covering their father Noah when Ham was making was trying to what's the word I'm looking for? Making a mockery of his father when he saw him was drunk and he was naked and was calling his brothers. He wanted to laugh at his father, but they came and they realized it was a wicked thing to do, so they put a garment on their shoulders and walked backwards and covered their father. Still on the ark. Sorry, this is when they come off Noah's ark. So when it says, the Most High shall enlarge Japheth, and he shall dwell in the tents of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. Why was Canaan going to be his servant? Because Canaan was the one that was cursed for what his father Ham did in making a mockery of his father's nakedness, Noah, on the ark. So when it says, God shall enlarge Japheth, this is why he got Europe, right? The Most High shall enlarge. Oops, where are you? The Most High, he said, God shall enlarge Japheth. Right? Europe, Western Europe, he could go as far as he want. Keep on going up into Asia, Russia. Because remember, this is part of Russia as well that we're looking at. You see the Caspian Sea, the Black Sea, the Volga River. These places are in Russia, Ukraine, in the USSR. So it goes all the way from Europe, all the way into Russia. So that's what Japheth was promised. And then it speaks about him here again. These are the generations of the sons of Noah, Japheth. It says the sons of Japheth are Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshech, and Trias. So why does it mention Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshech, Tiras? These are Japheth's sons. So if we look, the land that Japheth inhabited, here we see again, these are the same lands here. These are his sons, Magog, Meshech. Rosh is a short word for Russia. But these are the lands that Japheth controlled. Today, what we know as Europe, France, Deutschland, Germany, Polska, Poland, right? That's Ukraine, Belarus, Austria, Italy, Denmark, Norway. These are where Japheth's sons went, in the same land that was given to them to their father. All right, I just wanted to show you this. So when the Bible talks about, in the prophecies about Gog and Magog, it's not talking about the actual sons of Gog and Magog. It's talking about the people that are going to be in that land in the end times. That's why Gog and Magog is mentioned in Ezekiel chapter 38 as part of the war of Armageddon, where Gog and Magog are going to gather an army together, right? And it speaks about that. So then you got here, as you can see, 11 times. The last time Japheth is mentioned in the Bible is in 1 Chronicles chapter 1 verse 5. And once again it goes into his genealogy. The sons of Japheth, Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshech, and Tiras. That's the last time Japheth is mentioned in the Bible. Now, when it talks about Gog and Magog in the Bible, in Ezekiel 38 and 39, it's talking about those people that are going to be in that land in the end time prophecies. Because if we go to, let's just quickly bring it up while we're here. I'm not sure how long we're going to be on this today, but we're just going to go with the spirit, all right? (38), and it talks about Gog and Magog. These are the sons of Japheth, right? It says, "Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog." You understand? Not the son of Japheth is talking about. It's talking about the land of Magog. Set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince. As you know, we've been through that before. The word there, chief, means Rosh, which means Russian. Prince of Meshesh and Tubal, and prophesy against him. And say, "Thus says the Lord power, behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief, the Russian prince," the Rosh, that word chief there means Rosh, which goes back to the word Russia. That's where the word Russia comes from. Prince of Meshesh and Tubal. So that's what that's talking about here. The land of Magog. "And I will turn thee back and put hooks in thee into thy jaw, and I will bring thee forth in all thine army and horses and horsemen, all them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords." Now, just quickly show you once again, Rosh, the word chief, which means Rosh. Just going to quickly show you here, just for those of you who haven't seen this. I've been through this many times before. When it says here, the Rosh, the chief prince Rosh, the word Rosh is the same word Rosh in Ezekiel 38. Rosh.
Strong's H 7220. Rosh. Rosh.
Head. They know it means head. The head man. Now watch and see. You've seen this before. They're referencing Ezekiel 38 and 2. And Ezekiel 38 verse 2 and 3. Plus Ezekiel 39 and 1. And it says, "Of a northern nation," mentioned with Tubal and Meshesh, undoubtedly the Russians. So they know in Ezekiel 30, chapter 38, 2 and 3, when it talks about that word chief, which means Rosh, here, they know it's talking about the Russians. So the Russians occupied the land of Gog and Magog today. Rosh, Russia. That's where the word Russia comes from Rosh. So they know it's talking about the land. It's not talking about the people, Japheth, who originally inhabited Europe. They were pushed out of the land of Rosh. Japheth and his sons, Magog, Gog, Tubal, Javal, they were pushed out of that land. So the end time prophecies about Gog and Magog is not talking about the people of Japheth or Japheth's sons. It's talking about the land. That's why it says the land of Magog. The chief prince, the Rosh prince of Meshesh and Tubal, of those lands. Of what lands? Of the lands that were given to Japheth and his sons. Rosh, Meshesh, Magog. This is what he's talking about. So Japheth is not in end time prophecies. As I said, Japheth is only in the Bible 11 times. Now, how do we know that Esau Edom is a so-called white man? Well, we know that from the prophecies that are speaking of about Esau's blessings. But once again, we're going to show you this again. Esau is in the Bible 85 times. There's 85 instances of Esau in the Bible. New Testament, all the way, Old Testament to the New Testament. If we go to page 3, you'll see, I should have sorted by book, sorry. Genesis, it's all the Old Testament, all the way. The last mention of Esau himself is in the book of Hebrews. He's all throughout the Bible. Esau in end times prophecy. How do we know that Esau's a so-called white man? We know that through the Bible prophecies. All right, let's quickly go back to it. Hold on. I think it's 20. Yeah, sorry. Go here. It talks about Esau's birth, right? It says, and the first came out red. As we know, the white man is not actually white. He's different shades of red. Pink is a shade of red. He came out red all over like a hairy garment. He wasn't hairy. He came out like a hairy garment. That hairy garment that they're referring to is goat's head. They used to dye goat's head red and put it on the top of their tents, the Israelites, during the winter to keep the heat in. It was a cultural thing that they did. And you can look it up yourself. We're not going to go into it, but that's what they did. The Israelites dyed goat's head red and put it on top of their tents. That's why it says like a hairy garment. And they called his name Esau. The word Esau means Ayasha, which means wasted away, because he had no pigmentation in him, no melanin in his skin. So he looked like he was half dead. That's why he was called Esau. All right. Now, we also know that Esau's blessing, let's quickly bring it up here. He says, Father, 27 and 40. Down here it should be. And Esau came into his father crying because Jacob had supplanted him for the blessing. It says, and Esau says unto his father, hast thou not one blessing, my father? Bless me, even me also, O my father. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. And Isaac his father answered and said unto him, behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth, the riches of the earth of the world. Well, we know Japheth doesn't have the riches of the world, right? The Japheth people are suffering just like most of Ham. The Hamites are suffering, the so-called Africans, just like how our people are suffering. And we're all suffering under the rod of Esau. It says that thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth and the dew of heaven from above. And by thy sword, what's the modern day sword? Your gun, shall thou live. So we know Japheth is not living by the sword. Japheth didn't invent the gun. The Polynesian people didn't invent the gun. The Aborigines didn't invent the gun. They're not living by the gun. We know who invented the gun and who lives by it, who conquers and rules by it, the so-called white man. And by thy sword shalt thou live. So we categorically know there's one nation of people on this planet Earth that literally, not spiritually, literally lives by the sword. How did Esau get Africa? By the sword. They colonized it. How did Esau get America, North America, South America, and Canada? By the sword. They come with their musket guns. All right, the Spanish, the Portuguese, the British, the Dutch, the French. They came with their musket guns. They came with their actual swords and their musket guns. And they literally conquered it because they reinvented the gun till they perfected it, until they had the Gatling gun. And they literally conquered the whole continent. How did Esau get Australia? By the sword, which is your modern day gun. They came to Australia, the British came to Australia with ships. On those ships, they had cannons, which are guns, and the men had musket guns. They conquered Australia by guns. They conquered New Zealand by guns. How did the British take down the Chinese during the Opium Wars? By guns. They conquered them by guns. What did the Americans do to take down the Japanese shoguns? The shoguns were the what you call them people again? I was gonna say ninjas, right? I don't want to be disrespectful today, right? The shoguns, hold on. Shoguns people, Japan. I forget what they call them again. So they call them the military dictators of Japan's, all right? These were the shoguns, right? As you can see. How did they take these people down? The British came with guns. These guys only had swords and they were great warriors and fighters. The shoguns, all right? They just had swords and everything and that. But they were taken down by guns, The Americans, it was the Americans, I believe, that took them down. Yeah, I'm sure it was the Americans that took down the emperor and these guys, these shoguns. This is. Hold on. Yeah, I'm positive it was the Americans. But anyway, it was the Edomites that took them down. And they used guns. They had guns. This is what they did to the Japanese. They took them down. They had guns. So we can just close it up now. Let's go back to where we was. Where was we? So when it says, and by thy sword thou shalt live, this is how these Europeans conquered the four corners of the world, by the sword, the modern day guns. So this is Esau's blessing. This wasn't Japheth's blessing. Japheth didn't get no blessing that he was going to rule the world, that the fatness of the world was going to be his, and that he was going to live by the sword. There are no end time prophecies. There's little. The only prophecies that it speaks about Japheth is that his land was going to be enlarging, that his land was going to get bigger and bigger, until these guys, Esau, came out of Mount Seir and conquered them little by little. Over a period of time, of centuries, they conquered them and pushed them out further and further and further until they ended up in Hawaii, Australia, New Zealand, Samoa, and all of those Polynesian islands. So it says, and by thy sword thou shalt live and shalt serve thy brother, and it shall come to pass when thou shalt have the dominion, which is what he has. He has the dominion today. Esau, Japheth don't have the dominion. Esau has the dominion. That thou shalt break this yoke from off thy neck. Like I said, there are no prophecies in the Bible that speaks about Japheth conquering the world by the sword, which is a modern day gun, having dominion, having the fatness of the earth. There are no prophecies talking about that. And there are no prophecies about Japheth in these end times. So it all goes back to these two families here. Ultimately, the Bible is talking about, these are the two main characters of the Bible, Jacob and Esau. Esau had 5 sons, Reuel, Elizapaz, Jeush, Jalem, and Korah. Esau's grandson, Amalek, which is the son of Elizapaz, he is the head Edomite tribe today. These are the people that call themselves the Jebus, the Ish people. These are the head Edomite tribes today. Japheth ain't ruling nothing. Japheth is not the so-called white man, because all of these prophecies that talk about the blessings that Esau was going to have tells you. Now, let's go to the one that, hold on. Let's quickly go to, and these so-called Europeans, these Ish people, they know that they are Edomites. So when the scripture talks about this in Bible prophecy, once again, who's going to be in power at the end of times? Is it going to be Japheth or is it going to be Esau? So let's go to 2 Ezra chapter 6 verse 9. It says, for Esau is the end of the world, end of a rulership, and Jacob is the beginning of it that follows. So when Jacob becomes the power that they're going to be taken down is Esau, not Japheth. It doesn't say for Japheth is the end of the world. So when that guy, Ronald Dalton, that made Hebrews to Negroes, when he's trying to tell you in that Japheth is the white man, there's nothing in the Bible that points to Japheth being the so-called white man. No prophecies in the Bible point to Japheth being in power when Jacob takes down the ruling powers to set up the kingdom of heaven when Yahushua comes back. There's nothing that talks about Japheth being in play in any way. For Esau is going to be the end of the world. And Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. So Esau's going to be in power. So we know the Aborigines in Australia are not in power. We know the Polynesian people in Samoan Island and there's Polynesian Islands are not in power. We know the Samoans and the Moans in New Zealand are not in power. They were all conquered by the Edomites. New Zealand is ruled by the so-called white man. Australia is ruled by the so-called white man. Hawaii is ruled by the so-called white man. Hawaii is a state of America. They're not in power. The people that's going to be in power are going to descend from Esau. So who's in power today? Who rules the world today? Is the so-called white man. He's the one that rules it today. Now, you've got those. The reason why, there's another thing I want to show you. Those so-called Jews call themselves Ashkenazis, right? Is because Ashkenaz is a son of, he's the grandson of Japheth. So those so-called Ish people, they lived all throughout this place, Eastern Europe. This is where they come from. Germany, Poland, Hungary, Slovakia, Czechoslovakia, Austria, Romania, Bulgaria, Belarus, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, Russia. This is where they come from. They're Ashkenaz. That's why they call themselves Ashkenaz. They don't descend. Ashkenaz, look, Ashkenaz and the sons of Gomer. Gomer is one of Japheth's sons, is Ashkenaz. And Riptha and Togarmah. Ashkenaz is Gomer's son. Gomer is a son of Japheth. If we go back to, let's go into this. Descendants of Noah. Now these are the generations of the sons of Noah. Shem, Ham, Japheth, and unto them were sons both after the flood. The sons of Japheth, Gomer, Magog, Madiah, Javan, Tubal, Meshesh, Turas, and the sons of Gomer are Ashkenaz. Now, we know for a fact that those so-called Jews know that they are Shem. They come from the line of Shem. Or Ashkenaz comes from the line of Japheth. So when those Ish people call themselves, where is it gone? Hold on. When them call themselves Ashkenazis, they don't descend from the line of Japheth. They're not Ashkenaz. It's because they come out of those lands. That's why they identify themselves as Ashkenazis, because they come out of the land of Ashkenaz, which was given to. This is it here. See it says here, Tubal, Gomer, Beth, Togarmah. Gomer is who? One of Japheth's sons. They come out of that land, but they're not from that line. They don't come from those people. Because those so-called Jews know that they are Shemites. They know that they are from the line of Shem, not from Japheth. So they've identified themselves, call themselves Ashkenazis, and they're not Ashkenazis. They're Amalekites. Amalek, they descend from Esau's grandson, Amalek. That's who they are. They're not from Japheth. Now, they also know, let me show you this. This is in Bible end time prophecies, right? They know it says here, Edom. This is in the Zondervan's Bible Dictionary. Figures prominently in prophetic scriptures as a scene of great future judgments. Not Japheth, Edom. She is the only neighbor of the Israelites who was not given any promise of mercy from the Most High. Why was she not given any promise of mercy from the Most High? Because she is the Israelites' number one enemy. Edom, which is another name for Esau, because remember, it was his brother Jacob that called him Edom, as you can see here, is the Israelites' number one enemy. Edom is in the Bible. The word Edom, which is another name for Esau, which is a progenitor of the Edomites, the so-called white people, 82 times. So Edom's in the Bible 82 times. Esau, where is it? Esau's in the Bible 85 times, but Japheth's only in the Bible 11 times. So between Esau and Edom, they're in the Bible 166 times, or 167 times. 85 plus 82 is 187 times. And Edom is Esau, it's the same person. As you can see here, and Esau said to Jacob, feed me, I pray thee. He came in from hunting. Esau didn't catch anything, so his cheeks were puffing red, and he's hungry, he's exhausted. And you know when a so-called white person gets hot, or is finished doing a long run, being outside all day, energy, his whole cheeks and body goes red. He says, I pray thee, with that same red pottage, for I am faint. Therefore was his name called Edom. And the word Edom means red. So when it talks about Edom, it's talking about Esau, the same people. But in some places, Edom is referring to a symbolic place called Edom, which is the United States of America. So if you go to Ezekiel 35, when it says talking about Edom, it's talking about a place in the future. That place that represents Esau's stronghold, the so-called white man's stronghold, is the United States of America. So some places it's symbolically talking about another place, an actual place. And then in other parts, it's actually talking about Esau himself being referred to as Edom. As you can see here, look. Now these are the generations of Esau, who is Edom. 36 and 8. Thus dwelt Esau in Mount Seir. That's Esau's original habitation. Esau is Edom, the same person. So we know the so-called white man is different shades of red. We know his blessing was the sword. We know it only talks about a nation of people that's going to be in the end time prophecies. It's not talking about Japheth. That nation that's in power today are the Edomites. So there's another thing I wanted to just bring up here. This so-called white people, these so-called Jews, know that they are the Edomites, but they're trying to separate themselves from the Europeans. That's why it says there, it says, who are the descendants of Esau today? There is a Jewish tradition stemming from the Talmud, right? Which is what those Ish people study out of. That the descendants of Esau would eventually become the Romans. So we know the Romans are Edomites, and to a larger extent, all Europeans. Well, those so-called Jews are Europeans because they come from Eastern Europe. So they truly know that they're not Ashkenazis. They're not from Japheth. They know they're Shem, but they know it's talking about them. But they're trying to push this identity of who Esau is. They don't want to, those Ish people, right? They don't want to identify themselves as Europeans, but yet that's where they came from, because that's who they truly are. They are Europeans. They are Eastern. When I say Eastern Europeans, they are from Eastern Europe. They are the same people that they're trying to disassociate themselves from. They're trying to say Esau, the Edomites, are the Romans, which they are, and to a larger extent are all Europeans. But they are Europeans. That's who they are. But they're trying to say, oh, we're not from Eastern Europe. No, that's who you are. So if you got to remember, if we go back to so I'm just trying to think something. So you have to ask yourself, why do these Ish people associate Rome, which is a powerful city, in Italy, which ruled the entire Mediterranean world from the 1st century BC to around the 4th century, with Edom, right? Which is originally was a small province southeast of Judea, right? So they know the connection likely derives from the historical events associated with Herod the Great, because Herod was an Edomite, a so-called Caucasian. They know that. Now remember, during the late 2nd century, John Hyrcanus conquered Idumea. Idumea is a Greek word for Edom, making it a part of Judea, and forced all its inhabitants to become Israelites. John Hyrcanus did this around 137 BC. Eventually, one of the Idumean converts, whose name was Antipater, succeeded in becoming an important advisor to to John Hyrcanus, the high priest, to his grandson, should I say, to the grandson of John Hyrcanus at that time, all right? Because John Hyrcanus would have died by the time Antipater was on the scene. This was his grandson. Now, Antipater is Herod's father, right? That's the Herod that tried to have Yahushua killed when he had killed all of the children under 2 years old, the male children under 2 years old. We're talking about that Herod there, not Herod's son, who he called Herod, the second Herod. So Antipater is Herod's father. So remember, later Antipater's own son, Herod, married into the priestly family, the Hasmoneans, and became the king of Judea. Because Jonathan Hyrcanus was a Hasmonean. He married into that family, Herod. This is what these Edomites did, all right? To usurp the throne, to become the king of Judea. Now, Herod had strong ties with Rome, and he had a deep-seated ambition to rise in the ranks of the Roman government. And he was notoriously capricious and paranoid, killing off all of the surviving members of the Hasmonean family, which is Jonathan Hyrcanus' family, his grandson's family, right? So he was killing off all of the members of the Hasmonean family who presented potential royal competition, including his wife Marion's 17-year-old brother, Aristobulus, right? Who he drowned at a party. That's what Herod did. And remember, Herod later on, he killed his own wife, Mariam, as well as, in addition, her mother and other family members. So he was getting rid of all of the actual real Israelites within the royal setup, so that him and his Edomite family can take over Herod. And under Herod, Judea was a client state of Rome, remember. It kind of maintained a loose form of independence. So, and that client state kind of dissolved shortly after Herod's death, around 4 BC. All right? Yes, no, that's right. See, so it was his son. Okay. Yeah, it was his son. It was Herod's son that was the king. That was the King Herod that did the slaughter of the children of Israel that under 2 years old. It wasn't the first Herod. It wasn't Antipater's son, Herod, the first king of Judea. It was Herod's son, Antipater's grandson, who they called Herod. So anyway, and Judea kind of became part of the Roman Empire around 6 AD. But Herod's reputation, he was a cruel tyrant, right, during his rulership. Now, it's despite his official status as a Jewish descendant of converts, because they knew they were converts, Herod. They took on the Israelite faith, but they knew they were converts. So despite his official status as a Jewish descendant of converts, for the rabbis, Herod was not a Jew. He was not a Jew, because to be a Jew, you have to be born a Jew. Like he was like, he kind of was like he was like a what do you call, like an archetypical Roman vassal, whatever they call it, who occupied Israelite land and imposed his values upon our people. This is what he did, basically, just so you understand. So I'm just trying to think, right? But many of the Israelites thought that Herod was in league with Rome, which he was. He was absolutely in league with Rome. And, alongside his children, Agrippa II, Bernice, and all the rest of them, and that kind of thing. But the Israelites' knowledge of Herod's Idumea ancestry made it natural to connect this Roman ruler, and by extension, the Romans in general, with the people of Edom, because they knew that these people were related. But since Rome was a great power in the region throughout that time, the Romans did what? They destroyed the temple, and it was natural to apply the huge narrative of Esau and Jacob, but that's what it was. The Romans destroying the temple. So, they know. So when people keep saying that Japheth is the so-called white man, Japheth is not the white man. And the other thing I wanted to bring out here was this. Psalms 83. Whoops. Psalms 83. Now, when you go to Psalms 83, it talks about the Most High implored to confound his enemies, right? So these are the Israelites' enemies, who the Most High is going to confound. Now, it says here, keep not thou silence, O power, O Most High. Hold not thy peace, and be not still, O Most High. For lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up their head. They have taken what crafty counsel against thy people, and consulted against thine hidden ones. Hence all the hurrah that's going on about Kyrie and the movie Hebrews to Negroes, because he's found out they've taken crafty counsel against the Lord's true, the true children of Israel, and they've all consulted against the hidden ones. He knows, Kyrie knows this is a conspiracy, because think about who owns the basketball team that Kyrie runs, that Kyrie plays for, the Nets. It's owned by a Moabite who's forcing Kyrie to literally go on his knees and show more contrition than what he's already showed. The Nets is owned by a Moabite. Let me see if I can quickly put it up here. Okay, oops. Go away. NBA Nets owner. See, Joseph C. Tsai, right? He's either a Moabite, he's a Hong Kong Canadian billionaire businessman. This is him here. This is the man that owns the Brooklyn Nets. This is the man that's trying to force Kyrie to show even more contrition. He wants more blood out of him. He's a Moabite, because the Moabites are one of Israel's enemies. Japheth is not one of Israel's enemies, in the sense of these guys here, these people here, Moab and Esau and Ishmael. And I'm going to show you this. This is why it says here, for lo, thine enemies make a tumult, great noise. They that hate thee have lifted up their head. They all come together, our main enemies. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and consulted against thine hidden ones. They have said, come, let us cut them off from being a nation. They want Kyrie to deny that he's a Hebrew Israelite, that the Jews, those same so-called Jews, are not the real Jews. They want him to show more contrition. They want him to denounce what he said he believed in after he saw the movie Hebrews to Negroes. This is what they're doing to us as a people, as a nation. They have said, come, let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel, the true Israelites, may be no more in remembrance. We want to wipe you off from the map, so no one can, so you don't even remember who you are. For they have consulted together with one consent. All of these nations, they are confederate against thee. They are confederate. They've all come together to make sure that we no longer know who we truly are. Who are these nations? The tabernacles of Edom, the so-called white man, and the Ishmaelites, the so-called Arabs, of Moab, the so-called Chinese. This is a Moabite we're looking at. And the Hagarenes, they go back to the Hamites, I believe, to Mizraim. Mizraim was one of Ham's sons. Gebel goes back to the Hamites as well, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Gebel, I believe, goes back to the Hamites and not to the Ishmaelites. All right? If it's not Ham, it's definitely Ishmael, but I believe it's Ham. Ammon, the so-called Japanese, and Amalek, the so-called Ish people, right? Those that have stolen our identity. The Philistines go back to Mizraim. Mizraim is what we know today as Egypt, Africans, with the inhabitants of Tyre. Those that inhabited Tyre were the Phoenicians. The Phoenicians are Africans. Asher is what we know as Assyria, your modern day Assyrians, also is joined with them. They have holpen the children of Lot, do unto them as unto the Midianites. So David is saying, do unto these nations as what the Lord done unto the Midianites at Caesarea, as to Jabin, as to the brook of Kishon. Right? This is what David is saying. Now, as you can see, all of the nations that David says are the main enemies, are our main enemies, and he's naming them in order of the children of Israel. None of these enemies descend from Japheth. None of them. None of them are the sons of Japheth. He's not talking about Gomer, Magog, Gog. He's not mentioned Japheth. He's not mentioned. Let me just quickly pull it up again. Hold on. He's not mentioned Japheth. He's not mentioned Japheth's sons. Just so you understand how, if you want to truly understand that, you know that this so-called Japheth is not the white man. The sons of Japheth: Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Tishash, Tyrus. The sons of Gomer: Ashkenaz, Ripta, Togarmah. The sons of Javan: Elisha, Tarshish, Kittim, Dardan. And these were the isles of the Gentiles, divided in their lands, every one after their own tongue, after their families, in their nations. None of the sons of Japheth or Japheth's grandsons are named as an enemy, as a public enemy number one of Israel. They're still going to be servants and handmaids for us in the kingdom, the children of Japheth. But what I'm trying to show you is that none of them are mentioned as the enemies, the main enemies of Israel. They either come from Ham, the so-called Africans, or from Ishmael, the Ishmaelites, the Arabs, Amalek, so-called Jews, Edom, the line of Shem, or they're coming from Shem, should I say, right? Edom, they're Shemites. Amalek is Edom's grandson, Shemites. Asher are the Assyrians, Shemites. Ishmael, Shemites. Moab, Shemite. Hagarine, Hamites. Gebel, Hamites. Ammon, Shemites. Amalek, Shemite. Philistines, Hamites. So all of Israel's enemies either come from the line of Shem or the line of Ham. None of them come from the line of Japheth. So how the hell could Japheth be the so-called white man when we know our number one enemy is the so-called white man? But yet Japheth's not mentioned when King David talks about how these nations are going to come together with one consent. They're going to be confederate against us. How is it David could have missed out Japheth if Japheth is the so-called white man? When we know, everybody knows that our number one enemy is the so-called white man. Occam's razor, right? You look at all the possibilities, it can only be the simplest answer. That Japheth can never be the white man because he's not even mentioned in the list of our number one enemies. Japheth is not listed in the end time prophecies about what's coming, the destruction. Japheth's not listed in what's going to happen in the end times. The lands that Japheth occupies, it speaks of Gog and Magog, but the people in those lands today are Edomites, are the Russians, the ex-Soviet Union countries. The Turks, which are Edomites, take up some of those lands as well. Turkey is part of the lands that Japheth had. But the Turks are Edomites. So it's an easy one-on-one for you to understand that it's not talking about sorry, where is it? I just want to go to here. Japheth. All of Israel's enemies that King David referred to come from either Ham or Shem. Either Ham or Shem. It's as simple as that. It wasn't Japheth that took us into slavery. It was Esau, Edom, that comes from the line of Shem. Ham played a major part. Ishmaelites, Arab played a major part. Moab, these nations know. This is what I said to you. When you look at who owns, he's a Moabite. These are all confederate together. This is why he wants Kyrie to show more contrition. They're all confederate together, all of these nations. Then we've got some idiot here saying Japheth is the white man. Let's block this guy here. Some people, like I said to you, it doesn't matter how much evidence you show some people, they got no, like I say, it's all about Occam's razor. The simplest answer. If Japheth is not mentioned in end time prophecies, Japheth is not mentioned as one of Israel's enemies, how the hell can Japheth be the so-called white man when it is the so-called white man that's put the most pressure on our people? Come on, man. But that's what you get. We get those idiots that come on the comment board and talk about Japheth is the white man. Japheth is no white man. That's easy. We should. I mean, I don't need to really go into any more. I just really wanted to give you this simple explanation to make you understand that Japheth ain't the so-called white man, and Japheth is not in end time prophecies. It's as simple as that. It's all about Esau, Edom, the Edomites. Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that follows. It's as simple as that. So I'm going to leave it there, family. Right? So we hit the hour mark. As always, I want to give all the praises and the glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakah Kadash. Double honors to the apostles of Great Millstone who are leading this word in truth and spirit and sincerity. And salutations to my fellow Hebrew Israelite brothers and sisters that have been edified by the truth of the Bible, the scriptures of who we are, the true children of Israel, and who the other nations are. As always, I pray you are edified by today's edification. Japheth is not the white man and not in Bible end time prophecies. It's all about Jacob and Esau. Simple as that. So, shalom, shalom, shalom. Occam's razor. Remember what I said. Occam's razor. When all of these different answers come to, look at the simplest one. The one that actually fits. Like what OJ said. If the glove don't fit, acquit. Simple. Shalom, 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 family. All praises.